Hi, welcome to Rusted Bus. This is your host, Mick and M. And today we're going to be finding some spooky stories on the web and just talking about them as we go.
Right now we're on Reddit, True Scary Stories. I'm going to read the latest one that was posted 2 hours ago that says, My first experience with an Ouija board. Might as well read that one, right? It
That
was
sounds
posted
promising.
just two
Yeah,
hours ago.
hit me with that one. That one sounds good.
Okay. Let's see. It's really long. Are you ready? I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, let me bring my mic up a little. Okay, this says, I'm just making sure you don't see my phone in it. Okay. I'm gonna try to read this without like stuttering a million times. Okay. So, Reddit, True Scary Stories, my first experience with an Ouija board. I've been fascinated by ghosts and the paranormal for as long as I can remember. I'm 22 now, and despite watching countless videos and reading stories over the years, I'd always assumed Ouija boards didn't actually work. I thought most of what you see online was either fake or exaggerated for views. One day, my fiance and I were sitting around with nothing to do, and I randomly suggested trying an Ouija board. She told me, for some reason, I thought this was a girl. Well, okay, so it's a guy with his fiance. And she told me she had used one, or maybe it could be a girl and girl. You never know. Okay. Anyway, she told me she had used one when she was younger and claimed it had actually worked. I was skeptical and honestly thought she was just trying to wind me up. Now, haven't we all used one? We've used one
Yeah,
when we were younger, and it definitely feels like it works.
I I never messed with a Ouija board, but we did the spirit board, which is supposed
Kind
to
of the
be
same.
better. Yeah,
Yeah.
more protection or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's more protection. I have no idea we have to look that up later and talk about it.
Honestly.
Anyway, so back to the story. I thought he was skeptical, or he or she was skeptical and thought their fiance was trying to wind them up. Since we didn't have a real Ouija board, we printed one out, taped it to a cardboard box, and even made a cardboard planchette using a template we found online. I mean, I think a lot of people have done that.
Uh-huh.
So I think it still works the same.
100%.
My fiance was adamant that we weren't going to use it at her grandparents' house where she lives. That makes sense too. My mom did not want me doing them in the house, even though we totally
Oh,
did them in the.
my mom would have killed me.
Okay, she didn't want to do them where she lives. She said that she didn't want to risk attracting anything to the house, and I remember smirking because I still really didn't believe any of it was real. Instead, we decided to drive to an old what is that? Monastery? An old monastery. Why did I say it like that? I said
Monastery?
monastery.
Me the Menananis.
Maybe Keith should be reading them. Like, I'm really bad at pronouncing crap. Okay.
You're doing fine.
So they drove to a monastery in her town. The monastery dates back to the 12th century and was even bombed during the war. So we thought it would be an interesting place to try. I agree. That sounds pretty interesting. More interesting than what we honestly why didn't we travel somewhere that would likely be home to
What, for
try it?
using the
Yeah, we
Ouija
only
board?
did it in our houses. We didn't
That
travel
sounds
with.
terrible. What if we would have got, like, a demon or something?
But I thought we did in your garage where you're sitting now.
We
That
got
was the
something.
most demonic
Started with an
uh
X, whatever his name
answers
was.
we got. And okay, getting back to the story. Um so drove to like monastery. Why do I keep wanting to say it weird? Okay. Monastery in a town that had been bombed. We spent around 20 to 30 minutes attempting to contact a spirit, but absolutely nothing happened. That that can be kind of normal too, though. That's okay. Although I'd expected that outcome, I have to admit I was a little disappointed because part of me really wanted to experience something. We eventually gave up and went for a drive. As we were driving through the countryside, I spotted a small church with a graveyard in the middle of nowhere and suggested we give it one more final try. I parked just outside the graveyard and we set up the board again. For the first 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the planchette slowly began moving. I assume on its own. It doesn't say that,
Yeah,
but slowly
I'm
began moving,
assuming.
probably on its own. My first thought was that my fiance was pushing it to try to scare me. Okay, so they were holding it. I know we know this feeling. Everyone knows it where you assume feels like someone's pushing it and everyone's definitely just barely touching it.
Yeah,
It's so
it
crazy, the
trust
feeling.
goes out the window instantly. You no longer trust anybody.
But until you use it by yourself. The thing is you have it has the same if you ever use one by
I've
yourself, you're not
I've
really
never had enough guts to do
I
it.
used to do mine by myself with the spirit
I've
board,
never
and
had
it
enough.
feels the same. I promise you. And I know like there's like some people like try to there's a scientific like brain thing
Mhm.
that way to explain it, but it is crazy and a crazy experience. Anyway, so he felt it moving and thought for sure his fiance was pushing it. My first thought was that my fiance was pushing it to scare me. I asked her several times if she was moving it, and every time she insisted she wasn't. I still wasn't convinced, but I started paying close attention to her finger and noticed it was barely touching the planchette. That's when
Eh,
I started feeling genuinely unsettled. We began asking simple questions. Is there a spirit here with us that would like to talk? The planchette slowly moved to yes. We asked the spirit's name, but it drifted between random letters that didn't spell anything. We tried asking again, and the same thing happened. Next, we asked if the spirit was a boy. It moved to yes. We asked how old he was. The planchette moved to number 1, then moved above it before returning to number 1. We asked, "Are you 11?" And it slowly moved to yes. Then I asked what, looking back, was or sorry. Okay. Uh, then I asked what, looking back on it, was probably a stupid question. How did you die? I don't know why they wrote it that way. Then I asked what, looking back on it. Okay. So he asked what. Now he realizes was a stupid question. Okay, sorry. I'm weird. Okay, that's all.
You're
Uh,
fine. It's however this person wrote it.
they thought it was a stupid. Now they realize it was a stupid question asked. But they asked, "How did you die?" The planchette slowly spelled out FIRE. Fire. At this point, I was seriously creeped out. We tried several more times to get the boy's name, but it continued moving to random letters that made no sense. Eventually, I asked, "Do you not want us to know your name?" It moved to yes. After that, the planchette didn't move again, despite us trying for another 5 or 10 minutes. Even then, I was determined to find a logical explanation. I got out of the car and started walking through the graveyard to see if I could find the grave of an 11-year-old boy. My fiance thought it was a bit disrespectful. So she instead searched online to see if there was a record of people being buried there. There was, and among the records, there was an 11-year-old boy. I still tried to convince myself it was just an incredible coincidence. Then, as we got back into the car, I started feeling strange. The only way I can describe it is that I felt completely zoned out. I guess like disassociated. And
Mhm.
I wasn't scared. I just felt oddly disconnected. It's like disassociation. And like something then crossed my mind. I asked my fiance to search for the boy's name along with the town where he died. She gasped. She turned her phone towards me, showed me an old newspaper article. According to the article, in 1947, two boys had been playing with matches. One of them threw a little match into the petrol tank of an abandoned car, not realizing there was still petrol inside. That seems like, come on. Come on, guys. No, why? Why? Okay, the car ignited and both boys suffered severe burns. Tragically, they died the following morning. I was speechless. At that moment, I knew my fiance couldn't have been playing a prank on me. I was the one driving around, and I was the one who randomly spotted the church, and I was the one who suggested stopping there. She didn't even know that graveyard existed, let alone the story of one of the children buried there. We drove home almost entirely in silence, both trying to process what had just happened. I've had that exact experience before. Okay, it is very our previous story when I got hit by the porcelain, and then my whole group I was with saw the porcelain move on its
Oh,
own when
yeah.
after one of our friends was antagonizing the ghost to do it again. Yeah, and I did that walk home with a group of people just completely silent.
Silent.
Everyone process it's an experience, all right. To this day, I still don't know what to make of it. I'm not saying everyone has to believe in Ouija boards or the paranormal. There may as well be another explanation that I can't account for, but after that night, I can honestly say I am no longer as skeptical as I once was. Whether it was coincidence, physiological, or something none of us can explain, it's an experience I'll never forget. I give them a little like, a little upvote
Oh, yeah.
for sharing your story. This was Reddit r/true scary stories from I don't know if do they want to say the names of the people? Most people that read Reddit, they don't end up saying the names because I don't know because it's
Not really, no.
yeah. Do we just okay? It was posted 2 hours. You could probably find it. Anyone who wants to read it can go find it. I don't. If the person wants credit and they find it, I don't know. Oh, I'll write to. I don't know. I don't know. We're new at this. You couldn't tell all one or two people watching us watching this. Um, so that was their first experience with the Ouija board. Honestly, everything sounded pretty I can
Yeah,
believe it because it sounds very familiar to like experiences like we've had with when we've
yeah, I
used a
think
spirit board, which should I go ahead and Google that? Like, should I
what if it's any, like, different or anything?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Oops, let
remember
me
our
open it on a
first
different screen over here. Sorry, I just put it up over our recording.
yeah, I remember my first experience with a Ouija board was, well, Spirit board, the one that you brought over for that party, and, yeah, it was the same thing like that person said, like, nothing happened, but it was also
Yeah.
there was, like, 6 of us touching it, so there might have been, like, too much energy in the room. But, yeah, then, like, the second time when you brought it over and it was just 3 of us doing it, that's when we got, like, all the creepy stuff, and it was just some, like, demon dude who, like, watched me for years and, like, didn't like me or
There
something.
was definitely like a weird like aura
I could
vibe
feel it.
that
I felt like
came with it.
I felt like I was being watched when,
See,
like,
I'm
he's
so sorry. The thing is, I had used the spirit board, like I said, in my house, in my bedroom, several times, and the same thing happened. Honestly, like where it felt like there was a vibe and aura. It felt like a presence like
Mhm.
came in, and it didn't leave for quite a. This one was not nearly as threatening as yours. And,
Yeah,
menacing
mine didn't
as
like
yours.
me
Mine
apparently.
seemed to be like a pretty, like, chill type of but it was definitely there. Like, you felt like you're just being watched, you could feel it,
Uh-huh.
and it stayed upstairs for probably 2 or 3 years. So, yeah, here's a tip, if you wanna try a spirit board, it's definitely very like I said, it is an experience. I can agree with the people, don't do it in your house, especially even they say you should always close say goodbye and close the circle properly.
Uh-huh.
And every Ouija board
Definitely.
usually has instructions on how to do that. With the spirit board, I think you went in a circle and then went on by as you said it and then closed it up. There's like little rituals that you could do at the end. Definitely do that, but also I do agree not to do it in your not don't do it in your house.
Yeah, because I mean, even if, like, you're a skeptic, there's going when you're doing it, there's gonna be, like, some small part of you it's gonna be like the what if, and that what if is always more than enough to let anything in. That's sometimes that's all entities need, is that small what if. So, yeah, it's never a good idea to do it, like, where you live, because 'cause you're just inviting stuff in, and it could be good stuff, could
That's
be bad stuff, but you're inviting stuff in.
That's, like, exactly like my mom had always said like, said she didn't want me doing it, but I did it anyway. And because we were teenagers and, but that's exactly what mom would always say because she had used one when she was a teen, but they did it in, like not at the house, they did it in, like, a tunnel, one of those old like, one of those big, like, water empty tunnels, like, the
Oh,
metal I don't know
that
what they're
sounds
called, like, the
terrifying.
yeah, that's where they went and did it, and they had an experience with something hitting off the walls, but again, that's really hard for a bunch of teens, you're like, "Oh, well, it's
Yeah.
probably someone," like but, yeah, in my experience, the few times I've done it, I've definitely felt presences come in, and even after I've closed it, even though I will admit, I did not always say bye and close it properly, yeah. That's another thing.
Really? You d
No. There's, like, a time or 2 where I just closed it because there was one time I was using it in my room by myself, and it was midnight, and Strider was in my room with me, and as I was using it, that's when I told you I had posters on my walls
Oh,
that
yeah,
had been there
the
for
rolled
years,
up.
never a problem, and I had one I could hear it, you heard the like, the slow peeling, and I looked in and saw it super slowly just peeling off the wall, and then it just fell straight down, and then right after that, something else fell into the trash can on the other side of my room, behind me, and I
Yeah, it
remember
would've been done.
Strider was staring, the way cats do, where he was
Uh-huh.
staring and like as if he could see something, and that's when I like just closed up the board and pushed it under my bed and tried to go to sleep. And I don't think I actually closed it properly. I don't think I said bye or anything.
That's probably why your old house felt so creepy when I was in there.
It had vibes before that though. Like it definitely there was definitely like when my mom felt like the old man, the previous owner, like never left for a while, a long while.
It was
Um,
like anytime I walked past your stairwell that led up, and anytime I walked past the basement that led down, it felt like there was something there.
I think the old
And
man stayed in the
I did
basement.
not want to like turn my head to look. I would just focus forward and keep walking.
I think the old man stayed in the basement because that's where his like little workbench and stuff was. We had the original, but they
Ah,
left it there and everything. Like there's old workbench.
you
Um,
were down in the basement.
yeah. Well, by
Oh
the time I
no.
moved, by the time I moved down in there, but when my bedroom, when they renovated and I moved my bedroom down there, he was gone. I think you could tell. You know, like you can tell there's like a vibe, and
It feels
you don't feel like you're
lighter.
being and you don't feel like you're being watched anymore. Like
It feels. That's what I was gonna say. Like that's the weird thing about like after we did that spirit board and like it like told us its name or whatever. Because in that corner right outside my garage, I used to always feel like I was being watched from like that corner of the yard. But ever since that spirit board, like I don't feel it over there anymore. Like, it feels normal now. So I don't know if he like got so mad that like we were talking to him that he left. I don't know, but
it
like it don't feel like I'm being watched
does
over
feel
there
like they
anymore.
leave. My mom's there's definitely still something upstairs, like around where my old bedroom was, where my parents are now. Their bedrooms now, and where my bedroom used to be as a teen. And my mom definitely still sometimes you still hear footsteps from up there when you're downstairs, and that was always happening. But it doesn't feel like as menacing. Nothing feels really as menacing as it did like several like 10 years ago. Um, but yes, I did look it up on the side here. It says an Ouija board is simply a specific trademarked brand of spirit board. So while
Yeah, 'cause I
Ouija,
think Baltimore. I think we actually coined it.
there is a, it doesn't say anything on here or history, blah, 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 blah. The name Ouija is coined. The name Ouija was coined in 1890 when
Ouija.
businessmen Elijah Bond and Charles Kennard patented their talking board design. And I believe that did happen in Baltimore. It doesn't say here on this Google search, but like we live in Baltimore, as people probably already know, or do they not? Everything we've done so far has been in Maryland. So
I thought I said
anyway,
they know that we're from Maryland.
in Baltimore City, there is an Ouija plaque outside of the building for
There
supposedly where.
was.
Oh, don't say was.
Someone stole it
Well, that'd
because
be pretty rad. But
it's in front of a
I
7-Eleven
hope
and
I
it's
hope
on the
they
ground.
replace it.
They have not so far, but it was a gold like little plaque in the ground in front of a 7-Eleven
How'd they
because
get
that's where
away
the
with
corner
digging that
for
out?
that, and
How do you even?
someone,
You need to bring
someone
like an
stole it.
industrial like jack saw. Like is that like a jack drill? How? Okay, we will talk about that another day.
However they got it, they deserved it, I guess. All right. Okay. My boss gave me a strict list of rules for the night shift. I just found out why I have to mop the bathroom at exactly 3:15 a.m. Working the graveyard shift at a desolate highway gas station completely strips away your sense of time. First off, why is there a graveyard shift at a
I,
highway gas station?
well,
The-
aren't most gas stations open like 24/7? Or
I mean, if we're talking old school, then yeah, I understand that, but most of the time it's just automated now.
I mean, like for
The
the
long,
inside shop, people stopping to get snacks on long road trips, truckers at 2 a.m. coming in for a little
oh yeah,
snacky
maybe
snack and
yeah.
bathroom break. And
That does sound boring. Completely strips away your sense of time. The long, cracked stretches of asphalt extending in both directions remain entirely empty for hours. The fluorescent lights overhead hum with a constant, irritating vibration that settles deep into your teeth. I took the job because my bank account was completely depleted, and the owner paid entirely in cash at the end of every single week. He was an older, heavy-set man who constantly chewed on unlit cigars and rarely looked me in the eyes when he spoke. During my first night, the owner handed me a heavy wooden clipboard, holding a single sheet of lined paper. He tapped his thick finger against the top of the page. The register automatically locks at midnight, the owner explained. You only accept cash through the sliding transaction window. You stay behind the bulletproof glass until 6 in the morning. I wrote down the daily task. You sweep the aisles, restock the coolers, and wipe down the coffee machines. You follow the list exactly as I wrote it. Do we understand each other? I understand, I replied, taking the clipboard. Is there anything else I need to know about the security system? The cameras record to a digital drive under the counter, he said, turning toward the heavy glass door. Do not mess with the drive, just read the list, stick to the list, and you will get your envelope on Friday. After he drove away, leaving me completely alone in the building, I sat on a tall metal stool behind the counter and read the instructions. The first three rules were completely standard retail procedures regarding inventory and cleaning schedules. Rule number 1 through 4 was written in thick, heavy press red ink. If a rusted white van pulls up to pump 2 at 3 a.m., the driver will get out and walk to the transaction window. He will ask for the bathroom key. Give him the heavy brass key hanging on the hook under the register. Do not give him the standard plastic key. When he leaves the property, take the mop and bucket into the bathroom immediately. Clean the floor. Do not touch the water on the tiles with your bare hands. Use the thick rubber gloves provided in the utility closet. I would have already been
Trying to
like,
resign.
yeah, I would be
You're
like,
like,
I would have called him, like, what is this? You have to explain this. I stared at the red ink for a long time. The extreme specifics, oh, that's not a word. Specificity of the instructions felt deeply unsettling. I assumed it was simply a quirk of the job, perhaps dealing with a regular, eccentric local resident who had some kind of medical condition. The deep isolation of the highway breeds strange habits, and I needed the weekly cash for far too much to question the logistics of cleaning a bathroom floor. The rusted white van arrived on my third night. I was wiping down the glass surface of the hot dog roller when the harsh headlights cut through the darkness outside. I watched the vehicle pull slowly into the glowing circle of light cast by the overhead canopy. It parked perfectly parallel to the second fuel pump. The engine idled with a rough, choking sputter. The exterior of the van was heavily corroded, the metal eaten away by years of severe rust and neglect. The rear windows were completely blacked out with peeling tint. Creepy. The driver's door opened with a loud screech. A man stepped out onto the concrete pad. He wore a dark canvas coat and loose jeans. As he walked toward the bulletproof glass of the transaction window, I noticed his heavy boots were leaving wet footprints across the dry pavement. He moved with a slow, dragging gait. I stepped behind the register and waited. The man stopped directly in front of the glass. His appearance sent a wave of adrenaline through my chest. His skin was incredibly pale, bearing a sickly gray pallor that completely lacked the natural flush of circulating blood. His dark hair was entirely plastered to his skull, dripping steadily onto the collar of his heavy coat. He looked as though he had crawled out of a freezing river. The smell penetrated the small gap in the transaction window immediately. It was a dense, suffocating odor of stagnant water and wet mud. What does wet mud smell
Some
like?
drowned guy visits.
Earth.
It sounds like
I
there's
need the
the.
key,
Oh.
the driver said. Which one? First off, buddy, you should have known which one. You read it. I asked, my hands trembling slightly as I reached under the counter. The heavy key, he replied, staring blankly at my chest. He never made eye contact. I pulled the thick brass key off the hidden hook and slid it through the slid
Lid.
mm, slid it
Slid it.
through the metal transaction tray. The driver took it with a pale hand. His fingers were severely wrinkled, the skin puckered from extreme water exposure. He turned around and walked slowly toward the exterior bathroom doors located on the side of the building. Whatever this man is, why has he come to this gas station? I watched the surveillance monitor sitting on the counter. The screen displayed the black and white feed from the camera pointing at the side entrances. I watched the driver insert the heavy brass key, open the door, and step inside into the darkness. Exactly 15 minutes later, the bathroom door opened, the driver emerged, walked back to the transaction window, and dropped off the brass key into the metal tray. He did not say a single word. He returned to his rusted van, started the choking engine, and drove away into the darkness of the highway. I grabbed the rubber gloves from the utility closet, filled the yellow plastic mop bucket with hot water and bleach, and walked outside. The freezing night air bit at my face. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped inside. The floor was completely flooded. A layer of dark, murky water covered the white tiles. The smell of stagnant mud and decay was overwhelmingly powerful in the enclosed space. I remembered the rule written in red ink. I kept the thick rubber gloves pulled high over my forearms and began to mop. I wrung the dark water into the bucket, pouring the filthy contents down the utility drain, and scrubbed the tiles until they were completely dry. I locked the door and returned to the safety of the enclosure. This routine continued flawlessly for 6 weeks. Every single night at exactly 3 in the morning, the rusted van pulled up to the second pump. The pale driver asked for the heavy key. He went to the bathroom for 15 minutes, returned the key, and drove away. I pulled on the rubber gloves, mopped the flooded floor, and disposed of the murky water. The repetition of the event slowly eroded my initial terror, transforming the bizarre encounter into just another mundane chore on my nightly checklist. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday night during a relentless rainstorm. The van arrived on schedule. The driver completed his slow, silent transaction and retreated to the side of the building. After he returned the key and drove away into the driving rain. What is that? I gathered my cleaning supplies, pulled the heavy gloves up to my elbows, grabbed a mop, and wheeled the yellow bucket out to the bathroom. I opened the door and flipped on the light. The floor was flooded, bearing the usual layer of dark, foul-smelling water. I set the bucket down near the sink and began to push the mop across the slick tiles. I was exhausted. My muscles ached from the cold dampness of the night. I pushed the waterlogged mop head towards the corner of the room using entirely too much force. The wooden handle slipped aggressively from my wet grip. The heavy mop collided violently with the side of the yellow bucket. The plastic container tipped entirely over, spilling the mixture of bleach and collected floor water across the tiles in a chaotic splash. I let out a frustrated sigh and crouched down on my knees to right the bucket. As I reached down, I noticed the solid debris scattered across the wet tiles. The dark water left behind by the driver always contained small amounts of grit, but the spill had spread the contents of the bucket out into a thin layer, exposing the larger particles. I leaned closer, inspecting the debris sticking to the wet porcelain of the toilet base. They were long, thick strands of dark green aquatic weeds. Plant matter was slimy, coated in thick layer of river mud. Scattered among the weeds were several small, jagged fragments of decaying wood and rusted metal fasteners. The smell rising from the spilled water was intensely concentrated. The bleach could not mask that stench. I stood up slowly, a primal unease settling into my stomach. Why? It's just seaweed. I wouldn't be too freaked out right now. I finished cleaning the floor in a frantic, panic rush, ensuring I did not touch a single drop of the foul water with my bare skin. I locked the bathroom, sprinted back through the pouring rain, and sealed myself inside the bulletproof enclosure. I sat on a tall metal stool and stared at the surveillance monitor. I thought this time I wanted to know exactly what the driver was doing inside the room for 15 minutes every single night. I grabbed a computer mouse and pulled up the digital recording archive and selected the timestamp for 3 in the morning and pressed play. The black and white footage showed the rusted van pulling up to the pump. The driver stepped out, walked to my window, and then moved toward the side of the building. The camera perfectly captured him inserting the brass key and stepping into the bathroom. The door pulled completely shut behind him. I watched the time code ticking in the bottom corner of the screen. 1 minute passed, 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed. I stared intensely at the door on the monitor, waiting for the driver to emerge. The time code hit exactly 15 minutes. The camera feed glitched. A thick band of digital static rolled aggressively down the screen, disrupting the video signal for a fraction of a second. When the picture stabilized, the metal bathroom door was completely closed. I frowned, rewinding the footage by 30 seconds. I watched the door again. The static rolled down the screen. The door remained entirely shut. I fast forward the video. The time code advanced to 20 minutes, then 30 minutes. The door never opened. I pulled up the exterior camera, pointing at the gas stations. The rusted white van was sitting next to the second pump for 14 minutes past the hour. At exactly 15 minutes, the camera experienced the same exact burst of digital static. When the picture cleared, the van was completely gone. I pushed the computer mouse away, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The rational, logical part of my brain demanded that I ignore the footage. It demanded that I accept the paycheck and continue mopping the floor. But the horror of the situation completely hijacked my nervous system. I needed to understand the reality of the bathroom. I grabbed the brass key from the hook under the register, grabbed my flashlight from my backpack, and walked back into the pouring rain. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped inside, shutting it firmly behind me. I turned off the light, plunging the small room into darkness, and engaged the beam of my flashlight. I swept the bright circle of light across the tiles. The cheap porcelain sink, the metal toilet stall, the room was entirely mundane. There was no hidden alcoves, no removable ceiling tiles, and absolutely no secondary exits. It was a solid cinder block box. I looked down at the brass key resting in my palm. The teeth on the key were incredibly complex, far too intricate for the cheap, standard commercial lock mounted on the exterior door. The key belonged to a different mechanism. I dropped to my knees on the damp tiles and crawled towards the space directly beneath the sink. The plumbing pipe ran down the concrete floor, surrounded by a thick, rusted metal base plate. I shined the flashlight directly onto the metal plate. Hidden completely on the underside of the heavy iron disc, obscured by decades of accumulated grime and hard water stains, was a small, circular keyhole. I would have just left. I'm not going to put the key in there and be like, let's see what's in here.
When
My
you made
breath
it that
caught.
far, you have to.
That's just too freaky. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly inserted the brass key into the hidden slot. It slid perfectly into place, and I gripped the brass bow and turned it forcefully to the right. A loud clack echoed violently toward beneath the concrete floor. I grabbed the edges of the rusted metal base plate and pulled upward. The entire section of the tiled floor beneath the sink lifted smoothly away, revealing a dark square opening plunging straight down into the foundation of the building. What the hell is happening? A wave of putrid air aggressively rushed up from the hole, carrying the overwhelming gagging stench of something dead. I aimed my flashlight down into the opening. A narrow, rusted iron ladder descended roughly 10 feet into a massive bunker. Nope, I'm not going down there. I'm not doing that. The beam of light illuminated a horrific, devastating reality. The entire underground space was flooded, holding at least 4 feet of dark, murky river water, floating completely stagnant on the surface of foul liquid were dozens of decaying, waterlogged suitcases, torn canvas duffel bags, and children's backpacks. Protruding violently from the dark water, tangled deeply in the thick strands of aquatic river weeds, were human skeletal remains. There were dozens of them, pale, stained skulls resting against the concrete walls, rib cages wrapped tightly in decaying algae-covered clothing, small, fragile bones sinking deeply into the thick layer of mud coating the floor of the bunker. I fell backwards, away from the hole, scrambling frantically across the wet bathroom tiles. I covered my mouth with both hands, ill, suppressing a violent surge of nausea, my mind spinning chaotically as the pieces of the nightmare slammed together. A sharp, aggressive knock violently echoed against the bathroom door. My entire body locked into a rigid state of paralysis. I stared wildly at the door. I had locked the deadbolt when I stepped inside. "Who's out there?" I yelled, my voice cracking severely. There was no response. The driving rain continued to beat heavily against the roof of the building. I slowly pushed myself off the floor, keeping the beam of my flashlight trained on the door handle. I took a slow, trembling step forward, reached out, and grabbed the cold metal lock, and turned the deadbolt. "Why? Why would you go out there?" I pulled the door open and pointed the flashlight directly out into the rain. The concrete walkway was completely empty. The glowing perimeter of the gas station was entirely deserted. I stood in the doorway, staring out into the empty storm, the cold rain blowing aggressively across my face. Then I heard a sound. It came from behind me, originating deep inside the small enclosed space of the bathroom. It was a heavy, dragging footstep, the sickening, squelching sound of a completely waterlogged boot pressing firmly against the wet tile floor. My blood turned entirely to ice. The heavy trapdoor beneath the sink was still wide open. I turned my head slowly, moving with an agonizing, terrified hesitation, shining the beam back to the bathroom. Standing between the open trapdoor and the sink was the driver. How'd he get there? He did not look like the pale, dripping man who stood outside a transaction window. His physical form had completely deteriorated into a state of horrifying putrefaction. His body was massively bloated, his
Ew.
skin swollen and stretched tightly over his expanding tissues. The flesh was a sickly, molted purple, sloughing off his jawbone in thick, wet strips. Dark, murky water poured heavily from his open, rotting mouth, cascading down his chest and soaking into the ruined fabric of his heavy canvas coat. He raised a bloated, decaying hand, the long, jagged fingernails pointed directly at my face. Then he took a dragging step towards me. I abandoned the flashlight, dropped it onto the wet concrete, and sprinted blindly out into the rain. I ran with a desperate adrenaline, tearing across the flooded parking lot toward toward the glass doors of the main building. I heard the aggressive wet slapping of his dragging boots moving rapidly behind me, closing the distance with a terrifying unnatural speed. I reached the glass doors, threw my entire body weight against the metal handles, and practically fell into the brightly lit interior. I scrambled wildly behind the main counter, ignored the transaction window entirely, and threw myself violently against the solid wooden door leading into the owner's private back office. I twisted the heavy brass lock, securing the deadbolt just as a massive, devastating impact slammed aggressively against the other side of the wood. The door shuddered violently on its hinges. A low, gurgling, watery roar echoed heavily through the walls of the gas station. I backed away from the locked door, my chest heaving with deep, frantic gasps for air. The small, windowless office was cluttered with a tall metal filing cabinet, stacks of cardboard inventory boxes, and a wooden desk positioned in the center of the room. I pulled my cell phone from my damp pocket. My fingers were shaking so severely I could barely unlock the phone. I pulled up the owner's contact number and pressed the call button. The call immediately failed. The screen displayed a harsh "no network connection." The severe storm outside had completely knocked out the cellular towers in the region. I was entirely cut off from the outside world. The wet impacts against the door ceased. The gas station fell into a deep, oppressive silence, broken only by the steady drumming of the rain on the roof. I needed something to defend myself. I began frantically tearing through the clustered office, opening pulling open the heavy metal drawers of the filing cabinets, searching desperately for a firearm, a heavy metal tool, or a sharp object. The drawers contained nothing but endless stacks of tax documents, vendor receipts, and old payroll ledgers. I moved to the wooden desk, pulling aggressively on the locked bottom drawer. It refused to open. I grabbed a metal paperweight sitting on the desktop and smashed it violently against the cheap lock mechanism until the wood splintered and gave way. I pulled the drawer open. There was no gun inside. Resting at the bottom of the drawer was a thick leather-bound notebook and a small iron lockbox. I grabbed the notebook and flipped it open. The pages were filled with the owner's messy, slanted handwriting. It was not an inventory ledger. It was a detailed, methodological accounting of human trafficking. The entries
Mythological?
explicitly
Mythological
me-
human trafficking?
meth methodical
Okay, I thought you said myths, like mythical.
to be of method.
Oh, I thought it was like mythical creatures trafficking.
Mythical creatures.
Uh,
The, the entries explicitly detailed the owner's highly lucrative side business. He used the location of the gas station as a transfer point for undocumented immigrants being smuggled across the border. The owner used the underground concrete bunker hidden beneath the bathroom as a temporary holding cell. Why are they all dead then?
it
He
flooded.
locking,
And
locking the desperate people in the dark while he collected exuberant transit fees from their families. I turned the pages rapidly. I stopped on the entry dated exactly 7 years ago. The handwriting in this specific entry was deeply pressed into the paper, frantic and chaotic. The storm breached the levee behind the tree line, the entry read. The runoff flooded the drainage pipes. It backed up directly into the bunker ventilation system. I could hear them screaming from the office. I could hear them beating against the bottom of the trap door. The water filled the concrete box in less than 20 minutes. They all drowned in the dark. I am not opening the trap door. I'm keeping the cash, and the concrete is thick enough to hide the smell. I stared at the page, a profound, sickening realization heavily into my brain. I turned the final, most recent entry into the book. The driver came tonight. The owner had written the ink slightly smeared by sweat. I think he was one of them. I know that because of the white van. I remember him. He was working in delivery with it in his home. Wanted to come here for a better life, to provide for his family. Sadly, this is how life goes. They are dead down there, and I am alive here. The problem is, he pulled up to the pump at 3 in the morning and asked for the key. I think he's still convinced that he's still convinced that he is alive. Was he down there in the bunker too? And he wants to open the door and let them out. The dead do not know they are dead. I think he is trapped in the routine. So as long as I give him the brass key, he goes into the bathroom, tries to open the rusted floor plate, and disappears. He just needs to try. As long as I let him run his ghost routine, he does not come into the store, and the new kid can handle the floor. I retreat. That's crazy. So he knows that it's a ghost, and he's just like, yeah, but I'll just let him keep on being a ghost and do the whole loop. He's alright. That's wild. I retreated to the furthest corner of the small room, pressing my back against the cold metal of the filing cabinets, and pulled my knees to my chest. The impacts continued against the door for hours. I listened to the horrific, wet, tearing sounds of bloated flesh pressing against the wood. I listened to the low, gurgling moans echoing through a narrow gap. The smell of decay in the office becoming entirely suffocating. Burning the inside of my lungs, I squeezed my eyes tightly shut, praying to a universe I barely understood, waiting for the door to finally shatter completely. It never did. The violent assault against the office door ceased, exactly as the first faint rays of morning sunlight began to bleed through. The gurgling sounds faded entirely, and the wet, dragging footsteps retreated slowly across the floor of the main store, moving toward the exterior doors. I heard the sharp screech of the rusted metal van doors opening and slamming shut. I heard a rough choking engine start and the sound of tires rolling away across the wet asphalt. I remained in the office for another complete hour, utterly terrified that it was a trap. When the wall clock hit 7 in the morning, I finally stood up, unlocked the deadbolt, and slowly pushed the door open. The gas station was completely empty. The floors were heavily stained with foul-smelling mud and thick puddles of murky river water, but the bloated driver was gone. The owner always arrived for the morning shift at exactly 8 o'clock to collect the cash deposits. I walked behind the counter, picked up the main landline phone, and dialed emergency services. The landline connection was perfectly stable. I told the dispatcher to send multiple units to the gas station immediately, and I told them exactly where to find a trap door under the bathroom sink. I sat on a tall metal stool and waited. The police cruisers arrived in a chaotic flurry of flashing lights and wailing sirens just as the owner's pickup truck pulled up into the parking lot. I walked out of the building, handed the thick-lettered notebook to the cops, and pointed silently toward the heavyset owner standing by his truck. I watched the color drain from his face as the police officer read the ledger. I watched him place the steel handcuffs over his wrist and shove him into the back of the patrol car. I gave exhausting statements to the authorities at the precinct. I detailed the evidence of the bunker, the notebook, and the financial ledgers. I completely omitted any mention of the dripping rotted revenant or the haunted routine. The police did not need ghost stories to secure a conviction. The massive flooded tomb hidden beneath the foundation was more than enough evidence to put the owner behind bars. I am unemployed again, and the bank account is still empty. But I do not care. I am alive. I kept thinking about the rusted white van pulling away from the gas station in the morning. The trap door in the bathroom was finally opened. The horrific secret was entirely exposed, and the man responsible for the atrocity was dragged away in chains. I stared at the ceiling of my apartment, listening to the morning rain hit my window. I truly hope the driver finally got his closure. I hope the drowned souls resting in the dark can finally leave the bunker. And that was it.
That ended up being
Wow.
sad. More sad
I
than
know, right?
scary.
That was just depressing that like the owner knew about that they were dead, and he was just like, eh.
I mean, the fact that he was keeping them locked in there instead of wasn't he supposed to be helping them, like, transport them to get them
Yeah,
to work or something? And he was already like, what did he?
and like, and it says that he knew that the water main busted. So why didn't you grab the key and like run around there? He was just like, they're
Wait,
dead. It's too late. They're gone.
supposedly, I thought it said that he heard them screaming, like, and
Yeah,
like he could
exactly.
have
Yeah, it
done
said that he
something. I
heard
don't.
them screaming.
That was a sad, kind of messed up story
That
more
yeah,
than
that
so
was
than than
that was even
haunting.
scary. That was just sad. It was also messed up that like the owner knew it was a ghost doing the routine, and he was just like, "I'll just keep him trapped in the routine forever."
Just let him keep
That's crazy.
keep the loop. I wonder if like finding the bodies, having them buried, if that like put the loop to rest. Like, I don't think it explained
Maybe.
that at the end if it stopped that.
What I don't get is like, why was the ghost stuck in a loop? Because like I'm assuming he got the key and went in there and like opened the door. So I feel like he would open the trap door, see they're all dead, and be like, "Oh no," and then he would like fade away to the afterlife. Why was he just like, time to do this again tomorrow?
No idea.
That's the part I didn't get is why he was trapped in a
It's a
loop.
a loop. I that's what loops do. I guess you made it to a certain point and then it starts over. I don't know what. Wait, was it? I don't know. It seemed like it was random though. Like every other, was it like
Yeah,
every a
he
specific day of
said
the week, or was it just random that it would
he
show
said it
up?
was his third night. So I
It
guess
was the
it was
third
like
night it showed up, and I guess did all this
yeah.
happen on the same night? It sounded like it was like a few nights of this happening, but I wanted to know if it was
Yeah.
like the same like day of the week too that would happen. But
Yeah,
this is a story.
that part was weird.
This is
That
short.
I
What Reddit was this again? Did you say?
that was r/horror stories.
So yeah, someone's horror story. So it doesn't need everything doesn't need to make sense or
But I
have
will
too
say
many
that
details.
the idea of that always has terrified me because like that's been reported before that like ghosts were stuck in a loop and like they would just do a routine every day. That always terrified me. And people like always theorize, so yeah, that's what happens when you die.
Well,
I hope not. That sounds
there's
horrible.
I've seen things. I don't know. There's people who think it's just what happens if someone was like in a traumatic event where they don't know that they died, and are forced to do the loop. Or some people just say it's like a memory of energy. It's just energy where there was a lot of energy or something like like a
Yeah,
memory, not an actual haunting, but a memory. There are different
yeah, that's
opinions on
terrifying to me.
loops, on if it's an actual like haunting or is it just like a weird like memory, uh, little space time blip type thing. That is something we can look into more of and talk more about
Yeah,
in the
like
next episode.
different types of like hauntings
Yeah, like
in that
because
sense.
I always thought the loop ones were kind of really sad too. Like some of them are
Honestly,
really sad.
they're so sad.
Yeah, but I can't. I personally can't because if you look at other type of hauntings that are more sentient and stuff, like it doesn't make sense.
It's
Like
like you said, maybe it is because like trauma or like something like
either someone like
happened
in
so
denial,
fast. Yeah, like so fast they couldn't believe it.
they're just in denial and just. But like I don't know if I feel I don't know. I feel like they should at least eventually be able to break out of that. Like when they finally.
Hopefully.
Have
Or like,
you watched? Can we talk about like TV shows
oh
on
yeah.
this? Like I don't
This is
know.
like just talking points.
Like, have you watched it made me remember gosh, I was gonna bring up a scenario from a TV show, The School Spirits. Have you watched School Spirits?
Uh-uh.
It used to be on Netflix. The first season was on Netflix, and then I think they moved it to Hulu. I think. The second season after that, because the rights switched around. You should watch that. There's like 2 seasons out. There's gonna be a third. It's about like a girl that dies. Try not to give spoilers to anybody in her school,
Quote
and she
unquote.
and she ends up like befriending the other spirits in the school as they try to figure out
Oh.
how she died because she doesn't know what the heck
Uh-huh.
happened, and it goes into a lot of really cool like spirit ideas, ideologies of what can happen, and I think there is like a loop. There was like a loop-ish part of it that was brought up in that. My mind blanked. I lost it, but I don't want to give away spoilers
Yeah.
anyway. So I definitely recommend School Spirits to anyone who hasn't watched that one. And because yeah, there's another season coming out. It's a good show, and like I said, they dive into a lot of different spiritual like things that because they got this school full of spirits, and they do some body jumping and
Oh
they
wow.
have doors to like the next life, but then when they go through it it's not what they thought it was. And the third season is probably gonna dive deeper into what that was, but like, it's pretty cool. Like goes into like
Mm-hmm.
some neat concepts of the afterlife and spirits and um god, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I want to talk.
Yeah.
So watch that. Next time, maybe we could talk about it and do a spoiler warning for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. Everybody, to all of you 2 people that have watched us, watch the series so you don't have to worry about
Only
spoilers
the two
the next
people.
episode. Um, 'Cause we could talk about like some of that, the theories and kind of concepts going on in that. Because yeah, they're like most of the most of the ghosts are like pretty sentient and stuff, but they have like one of the little kind of rolling like kind of a joke part in it. It was the band died. They had a school band that died, and they do a loop where
Oh
they
no.
just go supposedly there, and that I think that's supposedly it, that they're in denial because spoiler, like one of them does wake up and leave, chooses to like ends up joining the rest of them, like but They
Oh,
still do have the rest of the band, just like they'll just loop their little band marching band stuff.
that's so sad.
Because they died in like a bus accident on the way to a band thing, and supposedly, yeah, so they have loops. Some are in loops, but they can be broken out of them. So they're in that one. But there's a whole lot of other, because then there are other ghosts that are like completely trapped that they go into talking about, and some that are really old. That there's, oh my gosh, it's a really cool show. It has so many levels to it, way more than just like one simple,
Yeah, that's
ghost
cool.
story
I
of.
always love like theorizing like the afterlife because I mean we don't have any evidence on it at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can go anywhere with it. Like I said,
It actually
because
reminded me there's a book I read called like Science and Ghost, and it there was this is a real life like scientists actually like did a session with a spirit, and it was one of the not probably one of the first EVPs, but it's one of the first that was actually documented. It was like some German scientist, and yeah, he actually got a ghost, and they actually like had a conversation. Um, the way the ghost described the afterlife also sounded very sad, and but it sounded like it sounded honest because like he asked the ghost like what does it look like, what's the afterlife look like, and it replied and said it looks the same. He said that he
the
can still
same.
see, yeah, he said he'd still see the wall, he can see everything that the scientist was seeing. He can see all the rooms, he can see outside,
I don't like
but he
that because I don't want people watching me while I'm in the bathroom, or because they had
he
the
said
idea that people are just on the other side, just eavesdropping.
watching you.
Yeah, just what's it
um
called?
Now the messed up part that like really made me like kind of like not sad but like just felt empty was it also told him that it can still get hungry and tired, but it can see the food, but it can't eat. It can lay down, but it can't rest. He said that it just spends its days walking around the house just tired and waiting for something else. And he asked like how long has it been doing this, and he said the ghost replied that he lost count of how many years he has been doing this now.
Did he ever
That
ask
sounds
if
terrible.
there are others though? Because there would be a
No.
ton of others. So if it is just him, then it does sound
Yeah,
like death is a different experience for everyone.
see that's also what we can go into more like detail and like talk about more in like if we do one about hauntings, is that always struck me as weird when someone like went to a haunted house and they like get like one ghost, and the ghost is like, yeah, it's pretty spooky here. I'm all by myself. Like, where's
Where's the other
every
ghost?
other dead person?
We have.
Other people died here. Where did they go?
Mm-hmm. That's why I think it also is a different experience for everyone. That some get stuck, or some choose to stay, or are stuck here for longer. I do think there's different levels.
Probably, yeah.
Though, and that's where, like I said, school spirits kind of goes in. It goes into that direction where there's different levels, and like so, they have a door, and they thought that was that was to heaven, to either eternal paradise or rebirth, but it ended up being like another level type of deal, and they have no idea. Like, so that's where third season's going to go into talking about all that, and I can't wait because I love it. Yeah. I was gonna do one more, but it's actually getting a little late on my end, and it sounds like uh my toddler kid is having a little bit of trouble with his dad
Okay.
out there. So I might also, since we haven't done this in a while, make sure that the quality that this upload's okay
Yeah.
for now. This is still at least like 30 minutes. We took a little bit. So yeah, if you guys, all of you two people, like
Always the
this,
two people.
please give us a thumbs up, a like, so we know that we should keep making more. We'll probably do it anyway because we don't
We'll
care.
probably do
And
it anyway. we just want to keep putting content out.
We like doing it, so hopefully this video turns out okay quality wise because we're still getting set
Yeah,
up all,
yeah,
especially since I've been through several mics since we've started this
yeah. Don't
because of my
don't let
cats and
any
my
type of
child.
children into that room anymore, cat or human.
They like break all like animal babies and human babies. They like breaking things apparently.
No babies allowed
Um,
in that room anymore.
so hopefully this turns out good, and then we'll just keep getting better. Maybe we'll pay for this Discord to see if we get better video
Oh,
quality. I
the
don't know.
nitro stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, so stick with
I'll
us, and
ask.
hopefully it gets nice. Our quality gets nicer as we keep, and we'll just keep it going. Next time, hopefully we'll read a little bit more than just 2 stories. But
I think this is like I said. Like I think the stories are a good way to just get us talking because I enjoy more of us talking in between the stories.
yeah, it gives us something to talk about way easier than when we start with like a script and we just zone out at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just
We've
sit here
tried
staring
writing
at
the
the
script
screen.
before on what we should talk about on an episode, and then when we actually sit down and record it, we just stare at each other and dissociate. Uh, because my brain, just like I said, I had something very specific from that show that I was going to bring up, and before I could even get to it, my brain went, "Let it go." I
I
don't.
feel that.
So I need to be in the moment. I need to say what I'm going to say, like as it comes to me, or it won't come out.
Yeah, I mean, at any point you can just cut me off, especially if like you said, like if your word's gonna go away, just hurry up, like shut up, hold up, let me simply say this real quick. Just jump in.
Hope you guys liked our two stories. Those are from
Yeah,
Reddit.
and our
Mine was
talking,
from True Scary Stories on Reddit. Mix was from
the
uh,
slash horror stories.
horror stories on Reddit. And maybe next time we'll read some stories from No Sleep on Reddit because I found some that looked really cool. That was titled, "We were given one rule before entering the abandoned subway line: do not whistle." And I kind of want to read that
Oh
one, but it looks
no,
like a pretty long story. So my husband's about to leave for work, so I need to get my child into bed. I will save that, bookmark it, and we can read it for the first time.
yes,
First story for next episode, and maybe we'll try to get one out once a week or something. Who knows? Not making promises. Thanks for
no,
riding the rusted bus today.
yeah. Thanks for
See
joining
ya.
us.